Das ist der Digital Insurance Podcast. In spannenden Interviews sprechen wir mit den führenden Experten über die neuesten Entwicklungen, Trends und Technologien zur digitalen Transformation in der Versicherungsbranche.
In today's episode, we're diving deep into the world of business innovation with a focus on creating positive and social impact. Joining me is Danilo Raponi, Group Head of Innovation at Generali, and we'll be exploring how insurance companies can move beyond simply avoiding harm and actively contribute to a better future. Welcome to the show, Danilo.
Hi, everybody.
Everyone knows Generali. What is your role there and what are you doing day to day at Generali?
Thanks, Jonas. As you mentioned, I'm the Group Head of Innovation. That means coordinating, stirring, promoting all our major innovation activities across the globe. That takes a lot of different forms and shapes, right? From promoting internal innovation to collaborating and partnering with startups, mixing the two things together, and also having a look at venture capital investments, which we do mainly indirectly via a number of VC funds. So it's a lot of things, right? Because Generali is a large company. It's not all an insurance company. We have massive asset management operations. We have real estate. We have even a winery, so we do a lot of different things.
You have a winery?
Yes, several wineries across. We are actually the largest agricultural company in Italy as well.
So why? I love that. So why is that? How did this come about? Is this merely a financial investment, or is there more about it?
To be honest, I'm not exactly sure about the history. At the moment, is part of actually the strategy of the group, right, to diversify. It's a company called, it was called Gen Agricola. Now it's changed name slightly. But it's, making wines which are, very high quality, and, we try to make profits out of those as well, of course.
I love that. So let's talk about the social impact and business innovation. You said that there is a specific connection and that companies should leverage innovation to generate positive change. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, I really mean that, innovation and sustainability, very widely defined, they go hand in hand, and more so, increasingly so, right? Why? Because I think that if you try to take sustainability on its own and you see it beyond the standard compliance regulations issue, and you really want to make it into a transformative effort, you need to be able to use and leverage the tools of innovation.
Right.
Both in terms of methodologies of how we work or how we look at problems and how we look for solutions, but also in terms of technologies, right? Because if you want to make sure that we are active in generating positive social impact, you can't do that in traditional ways of working, nor using traditional standard products. So you need to go beyond that. You need to leverage on technology to make everything you do faster, leaner, cheaper, and more effective, right?
So what are these methodologies you're talking about?
Yeah, we one of the big things we do as innovation team in Generali, but in any insurance company, really is trying to change a little bit the way people work, right? Because of the legacy. We are a 200-year-old company. Most insurance companies are that old,
right.
Even if they're not that old.
Not all of them have wineries, though, but yeah.
Yeah, I know, that's the sweet spot.
Quite literally, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Even though they may not be that old, but they have this way of working, which of course has come from a risk-adverse culture, typical of insurance companies, which makes sense, obviously, given the business we are in, right?
Right.
At the same time, when you're looking at what's happening in the world and, at business, how it's developing, and also macroeconomic trends, you need to make sure that you are focusing more on the customers, right? So there has been a tendency always to focus more on products in creating technically beautiful products, right? At the expense maybe of customer needs,
I like the word or the wording technically beautiful products, because this is the mindset where you have not technically, what's the word?
Actuaries, yes.
This is hard to pronounce. Actuarially beautiful products that don't connect with the customers. That's highly interesting. Okay, but carry on, please.
Yeah, exactly. And so to start from customers rather than starting from products, this is a bit of a cultural and that is a mentality change, right? And so this is what we try to do by, using methodologies like, lean startup, design thinking, Scrum, all these things put together. We actually created our own innovation methodology, which is called We Innovate Generali, which is a mix of all these things, right? That are nothing new. No, they've been used now for maybe a decade or so by a lot of companies, but in some sectors of the economy, such as insurance, they are still relatively new, right?
So, which means you're iterating quickly, you're trying to learn quickly,
exactly.
You're trying new stuff, small increments, and all these kind of things.
Fail
right?
fast, right? And when you say fail fast, already people start getting a little bit tense, right?
I was about to get nervous, actually. That's right.
See, there you go. You might be a good
I was like, oh my
person.
God. Did he just say fail?
I don't know word to be used, right? No, but I mean, there is the increasing awareness, luckily, that, that it's important, in an innovation environment, you're not going to make it all the time. Otherwise, we would already be doing something else, right? I guess. So there is this awareness, and I see it already more and more in some of our business units, right? They're really adopting this methodology that if it allows them to check and test and then maybe fail very early, then they don't mind it so much anymore because they've done it very, very early in the innovation process. So before they've invested money, before they've wasted a lot of people's time, right? And then the marginal cost of failing is much lower, obviously, right?
So we have something. So you guys obviously have a strong focus on sustainability, like probably not all companies, but most companies.
Yes.
So you have to differentiate between passively sustainable, which is sort of an after effect of doing something, and actively contributing to sustainability. Mm-hmm. How do you see the differences, and do you have examples for each of those, and what do you think?
Yeah, no. So Generali as a company, doesn't really differentiate among the two because, to be honest, jokes apart, it has been a company engaged with a lot of sustainability topics quite early on and very actively for a long time, right? But this is a distinction I make because we still obviously need to get better at it as an industry as well, right? Because one thing is, as I kind of mentioned quickly before, complying with all regulations, showing that you are sustainable by compiling beautiful, social responsibility reports, donating some money here and there, which is all good stuff, right? I'm not saying that you need to do that.
And this is so what you term passively.
This is the passive part,
because this
right?
is, I would rephrase it. I would say it's passive, but it's also sort of table stakes. It's sort of what you have to do in order to be relevant, right? And then what you're talking about is what you're coming to next probably is what can you actually do beyond that, right?
Exactly. It's going beyond, right? The things that you have to, basically, there is a minimum standard of things that you have to do them, whether you want it or not, right? Otherwise, you're going to be seen as a dinosaur, if not, right? And not compliant with some stuff, right? So there are a minimum things you have to do, and everybody does, right? But there is a lot more that you could do beyond that. You can do and you should do, I believe, right? And what are these, right? This is the what you mentioned as being, proactively sustainable and generating a social impact, right? And obviously this can take a lot of forms and shape, right? And this is not here we have the final recipe. But I mean by that insurance companies are by definition actors that produce a positive social impact, or at least they were born as such, right? I think at the very beginning of insurance, it was born because of fire insurance. It was born really to help people in times of need. Obviously, it always had to have a layer of profitability to be able to sustain insurance, but it was really the mutuality principle. The mutuality principle is a very solidaristic principle, right? It's a community principle. Exactly. Right?
So the foundation is in the community.
Yeah, the foundation is the community, right? That's why, a lot of insurance companies in Germany, for example, they're still a kind of cooperatives or mutualistic companies, right? Because that's how they were born, really, right? Now, there are a lot of companies that are obviously, quoted in the stock exchange. So let's say more grounded in the capital markets, which is fine. And they also work well. But I think to live and to be true to their original missions, there is much more that they could do, and which is also relatively easy, right? So it's not that you are an oil company where producing positive social impact is probably quite difficult, or like, I don't know, a cigarettes producer,
so
right?
what examples? So how about, you guys have a large part, and you said as is already capital investment operations.
Yes.
Asset allocation investment.
Yes.
Asset allocation operations, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
This is obviously a major leverage to have impact, influence on other companies. And there's this activist investing kind of thought where you say, okay, I'm grouping together with other shareholders, monitor and take part in sort of, or rather give my voting rights to a third party that then does things on our behalf and kind of instructs the management of these companies we're invested in, and kind of instructs them to sort of focus more on sustainability and kind of thing. You can follow me. Is this something that is relevant, or how do you see that?
Sure. No, this is definitely relevant. It's, the way I see it, it's already, let's say, I'm not saying that it's easy to do, right? But it's something that, especially when you are a company with like billions of euros of assets under management, you can relatively easily, shift some of these investments to like, green investments, and this is something that to be honest, basically all insurance companies do, right? They really try not to invest in companies that do harm, right? So they really like, they are very much ESG or SDG compliant in terms of investments, right? Because again, it's not that it is easy, but you can just basically move money around a little bit and find companies that are a little bit more in tune with the sustainability principles, right? So when I mean producing positive impact, is again also beyond this, right? It's about creating new stuff, it's about really going into seeing how can we have new products, new business models, new ventures that are primarily created to generate positive social impact whilst being obviously financially sustainable, no? So this is again a big distinction between business and charity, right?
So this is social entrepreneurship.
Yeah, it's social entrepreneurship basically, right?
But what are real life examples?
Yeah. So we are working at the moment in Germany, actually, with Generali Deutschland, in a venture that is started from customer needs, right? So we looked at what are sectors of the population that in Germany are, not having the best times of their lives. So we, there's a couple, and we found obviously, unfortunately, the large migrant and refugees communities. No, after Syria and Ukraine is very large in Europe in general, and in Germany also specifically, right? So we kind of, started again from the customers. We went there, we tried to adopt the innovation methodology, seeing what are the hosts of problem. Unfortunately, they have many. At the beginning, one of the problems that they have, which we found could be something that Generali could help solve, was a whole host of, let's call it financial inclusion, right? So they come in the country, especially in the first 6 months, 1 year, when they don't even have the asylum status settled. They are really been in a limbo, right? So they can't really have a bank account. They can't have minimum financial assistance. They
difficult.
Very difficult, right? So we said, what can we do there? So we started seeing a little bit what we could build. And we have a plan to really build a whole host of financial inclusion platforms that will have, basic insurance instruments, basic access to financial tools, debit card and stuff like that. Huh? But we started with the problem which we felt was mostly felt by the groups of people, which is, guess it, accommodation, right?
Right.
Because, it's a big problem in Europe and in Germany in general, also for, let's say, people who are not in these communities, but for them mainly, because when they come into the country, often they get government-sponsored accommodation. After a while, though, they need to leave it and they get subsidies, right? But even though they get subsidized, they still have issues because in the private market, there is not that much offer, as you know. It's very expensive. And also there is a little bit of underlying diffidence, let's call it this way, not to use another word which may be more appropriate towards these people, right? And so landlords often don't give it to them because they don't trust that they can afford the rent. And so now we're creating a deposit guarantee base. So the first
probably inexperience with the market in general, right? Like how does this renting market, housing market work? What are those implicit rules and
exactly
determination policies and
all these things, right? Exactly. And so that we are helping them with a financial guarantee on the deposit, right? So that the landlord, instead of seeing only these people who are maybe just arrived into the country trying to guarantee the deposit with whatever means they have, they see Generali is backing this, right? So in case they default on the deposit, I guess landlord feels kind of a bit more reassured and they get more easily accommodated, right? So we are starting from this, but this is just the beginning, right? Obviously, we're not aiming in stopping there, right? We are aiming at developing a whole host of these tools. And as I said, right, to increase slowly the products that we create for these people. Why? The why is important, right? Because, well, it's obviously morally just to do so, but there is also a business sense in doing
that's what
it, right?
I was trying to get at, exactly.
So it's not only because we are good, right? That we want to be good,
Exactly.
which of course is important, but it's also because we see that there is big business opportunity. And this is, I think, what a lot of people still struggle to get, or they don't connect the dots in a way, right? So between doing good and being profitable, right? It's a little bit like innovation.
So how do you do this? So let's stick with this deposit example for a moment. So I'm understanding, and correct me if it's wrong, but what I'm understanding is that when you're renting a house, flat, whatever, usually the landlord expects you to pay a down payment for a deposit in case something goes wrong, you kind of run away or something. And because these people tend to not have this money, or kind of don't have the credibility to have it, you guys are backing them with, okay, we sort of certify that these guys are credible, they have the money, la la la. So how do you make money with this fact?
This is, it's, as I always say, right? When you create positive social impact by building socially purposefully businesses, you are not making money now, right? So it's a little bit like innovation. What is innovation? A definition of innovation is losing money now to make more money later, right? This could be
I love it.
right? And it's a little bit the same when you do social impact business, right? You're not going to make money now with these poor people, also because you don't really want to kind of exploit them, right? But you're gonna, what's the point, right? The point is being there in a time of need, right? And what happens also, this, behavioral finance, behavioral economics, when you are there for people in times of need, right? They will be very loyal customers. They will stick with you, right? And statistics and numerous studies show that a lot of these people, they're not going to remain in that group of vulnerable customers forever, right? They gradually grow. And here in Germany, they actually grow quite fast into integrating into society, getting, like well-paid jobs, especially because a lot of them, they were actually university educated at home and stuff, right? And so they will soon become standard customers, but they're not standard customers. They go and check 24 to switch all the time, right? They are, Generali was there for me when I needed it. Now let me stick with this company, right? I mean, it's again, stuff that, and then, you create large pools of customers that also by word of mouth, they will treasure your company. That of course, we are there and we need to make a profit because we are a profit-driven company. We need to sustain our operations, right? But, at the same time, we really were there to help also when they needed it most. No?
So essentially, you're going to marketing and say, hey, do you guys have budget for my innovation project here? So this is marketing spending.
You could call it like that, yeah. You don't use the marketing budget, but we use other budgets. But yes, no. In a way, it is right. I mean, it's marketing also because you are right. And another side effect is, of course, that Generali is increasingly seen as a social innovating company, right? So even customers that are not in these vulnerable groups, but they are very careful in looking at these things, they will see, Generali is actually doing good stuff, right? And there is more and more of these, right? There's more and more. You don't need to be an activist. You just need to be a normal consumer, a little bit aware of what's going on, right? And you will kind of also pick and choose the companies depending on how they behave, no?
Right. So, but this again is marketing.
Yeah, it's marketing. Yeah.
And what about the rest? So do we have more examples of these? Do they all fall into this marketing category? Activist investment, not necessarily.
Not necessarily, no. Yeah, I mean, you could, I think, to be honest, and we have done some research on this, right? I mean, micro insurance, no?
Yeah.
That has been working in developing countries for a long time, right? There, it works because it works, right? It's not because then at some point these people start spending more. It works as a business model, right?
Right.
So then, the reasoning is if it works in developing countries, right, this microinsurance model, so very lean products, very cost effective, digitally sold without intermediation for specific groups of people, why shouldn't they not work in Europe now that we have large groups of population that they cannot afford the standard products, right? So, I think that if you manage to get a large enough part of the population in Europe that at the moment is substantially not insured. And they're not insured. Why? Either because they can afford it or because they don't even know, right? There's a problem of financial literacy as well, right? Sometimes it's a combination of both. So if you manage to let these people know that these things exist, and actually you can afford it because it's tailor-made for you, right? Then these models, they can actually be profitable on their own without then having to think about the future of, how you develop in terms, of marketing as you defined it, or, loyalty.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. This is not marketing budget. Yeah. This makes sense. So speaking of the other one before, if it's marketing budget, how much can you actually do? Because there's like a large, I don't have the numbers in my mind, but there's a large figure of people fleeing from these war-torn countries that might be receptive to these offers.
Mm-hmm.
But how much can you actually do? Because there's a limit to how much you can spend on these kind of things.
Yes, of
You
course,
gotta reach them, right?
Yeah,
You gotta talk to them. There's like hundreds of people you needed to kind of.
To be honest, this is a very good question, Jonas. And surprisingly, also for us, reaching them is not that difficult because luckily also, especially talking about the example we're doing in Germany, there's a lot of companies, a lot of NGOs, a lot of governmental agencies that are working with these people, right? So as soon as you get in touch with them, for example, there is NGOs that really help them with the bureaucracy as soon as they arrive into the countries, right? Going via these is very easy because they're obviously looking also for partners to kind of help them in all sorts of things, right?
Okay,
so
they
the
leverage
distribution is actually quite easy, right? Because these people are, well connected now in a number of helping institutions. What's more challenging is exactly what you said, right? Making sure that the spending is contained and that you start to recouping the money as early as possible. Obviously, for us, as I said, this is just the very beginning. It could be, for example, and I don't have the figures yet, right? Because we are experimenting right now. So, innovation. We may be that if you only stick with this deposit insurance guarantee, it would not be profitable ever, right? But we have, and again, the business case that we have is that we start sticking other products, basic private liability, right? Basic home insurance, basic things that the normal Europeans have, and they don't, right? If we manage to make them, again, that's what I said before, leveraging on technology, digital, making it super lean, lowering the costs in all possible ways, then we think that once the platform is complete, it will start becoming profitable per se, even before waiting that the customers grow and they start buying our normal, let's say, more effective products, right? Well, more profitable products. Yeah.
We can, I want to get your view on one thing. I have read and watched, I don't know, video or something, and it kind of makes sense. It's expensive to be poor. This is very interesting.
Yeah.
Because usually you need insurance to cover life-changing events or life-threatening events. Not life, like personal life, but living standard threatening events. And the less money you have on your savings account, the more events there are that are life-threatening. For example, if you have 5,000 euros on your bank account and you have furniture worth 10,000 euros, and if you have a water leakage and everything is sort of destroyed, then you can't buy new furniture, and then you need this insurance.
Yes.
But if you have more money, obviously, if you have 100,000 euros, then you might have, I don't know, like 10,000 euros of furniture, and the relationship between both changes. So how do you see that? Do you confirm? Do you see that the same way as I do? And how does this fit into this broader scope of supporting of these people? Is there an angle?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, and if you think about it, right? There are already some insurance covers that are very cheap, right? And actually, as I always say, maybe, so I shouldn't say this officially, but I mean, there is a lot of insurance that really don't make sense for people who earn a normal
no one is listening.
salary,
no one is listening.
Right? No one is listening. For example, you don't need a smartphone insurance because I'm sure you can afford a new smartphone if it breaks,
I got myself a case and it looks ugly, but
at least it's not gonna break, right? So this is a form of insurance, really, right? So you pay for that, right? It's a form of insurance, right? It's a risk prevention rather than a risk management when it happens, right? So, but just to say, there are a lot of insurance that are really cheap that actually don't really make sense for standard earners, right? But they do make sense for people who, as you said, right, because they are in this vicious circle of being poor, hopefully temporarily, there is a lot of things that threaten them, right? But the things that threaten them are actually relatively cheap, and that's why also, obviously you are selling standard as very cost-effective products, but you're also then facing very small claims, no? And that's why then in the long run, in the mass of people that you do reach, again, the volume thing here is important, obviously. If you only do it for 5 people, it's never going to work, no? But with volumes and with getting better at it, let's be honest, right? It's new for us as well. So we also need to get better at pricing and looking at accessing certain sectors of customers. You will really manage at the same time to do some good and to be sustainable financially, right?
So last aspect, how do you see the contradiction of sustainability and profits? Because there's a lot of people that say, okay, you can be sustainable and you can have the same profits. But the way I look at it is, if you're limiting yourself on options to invest because of sort of sustainability goals, then you're limiting yourself on profitability because you could, let's assume there was a, I don't know, tobacco industry
sure,
company that were doing 5% dividends or something, and you can't invest, and you have to invest into something that does 4% dividend and is kind of planting trees, well, then you're giving away 1% profits for sustainability. Or
Sure.
How do you see that?
No. There is definitely a tension. So I think there is ways to mitigate that. And as I said, there is ways to combine, especially if one has a little bit of a longer term view. But there is also definitely a tension. I think in the end, it has really to be a management decision based on societal patterns, right? So basically, I think we are coming to a time when we need to ask ourselves, are we really doing as a favor by pursuing the maximum profits that we can at the expense of everything else, which means, we don't care about the earth and the world, and we just pursue profits until everything burns and then whatever, right? Because we burn with everything else. Or are we thinking, oh, wait a second, there is something going on, we may be a little bit paying attention, and the earth is in a bit of a dire state. Let's have a look. Maybe if we compromise these profits now, we are ensuring the sustainability of the company for another 200 years. Which may be more important than maximizing profits right now, right?
So if you summarize what we just talked about is so at least the way I look at it, and correct me, so you have sort of 3 or so ways to look at being actively sustainable using innovation, which is, first of all, you can look into your own activities when you do asset management. You can try to allocate assets to sustainable companies and sort of have a positive influence on their shareholder meetings or something. Second, what you just said is doing something that has an actual business case, right? There was the micro insurance, right?
Yeah.
That is a business case that makes sense.
Yes, absolutely.
And then you have marketing spend, where you have things that don't pay off today, but also in the future. Is there anything else that you would add, or is this sort of it?
I think that's pretty much it. For me, the most important thing is really this, the company should try more and more. And what I said, this is only one example, but we're also testing other business models in mental health, for example, right? Where there's a lot of inefficiencies of the market, and there's a lot of people, especially non-professional caregivers, that are left out without any help, protection and stuff, right? I think there is more and more what companies could do in terms of really trying to see, okay, so this is a social need. Let's see whether we can help, not with charity, which is of course always helpful and it should stay there, but it has a different, charity is limited, right? At some point money runs out.
That's what you just said.
If instead you try to solve that social need by building a business around it,
that's the sweet spot.
It's a sweet spot. I know that, for example, and I know this because of what they publicly say. BBVA, the Spanish bank, they see sustainability as the major business opportunity of the future.
Wow. So cool. Danilo, thanks so much.
Thank you, Jonas.
Das war eine weitere Ausgabe des Digital Insurance Podcast. Folge uns bei LinkedIn und lass eine Bewertung bei Apple, Spotify und Co. da.